understand what you're trying to ask.
All right, we're live. This is a direct feed from the White House.
We will talk about this
my
follow-up question after that lack of response was there was an eye-popping moment in the report specifically about the president's ghostwriter, and that was that after he learned that the special counsel had began an investigation, he deleted some of his recordings. Now, those recordings were able to be recovered. What I'm curious about is, can you say definitively whether or not the president or anyone else at the White House was in contact with his ghostwriter?
This is in the report. I mean, read the report. In the report, it says that they sought this, they looked into this, and that they didn't. So that's in the report.
They were not.
We're going to wrap this up. Good,
Thank
John.
you, Karine. Ian, thank you so
Sure,
much.
yeah.
2 questions, just for clarity. You're from the White House counsel's office,
Correct.
But you're not a lawyer, correct?
That's correct. I'm a spokesperson.
Okay. Any chance that we'll get the White House counsel to come out here and answer questions directly?
Should I be offended by that? I mean, I
get offended all the time.
I know. I mean, what? I mean, come on.
You did say something that was
I was
factually incorrect.
asked.
There has been a previous special
Okay,
counsel.
John,
probe.
John, finish your question, please.
I was asked to come today by your colleagues in the press corps, and we happily obliged.
As you know, former President Trump, he was charged with a slew of criminal charges related to classified documents in his possession, including counts of willful retention of national defense information. In this report, it's made clear by the special counsel that President Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified material. He kept it in unsecured locations after his vice presidency, which presented, according to the special counsel, serious risks to national security. So my question to you, Ian, is can you explain to every voter out there, every American, why it is that President Biden essentially is let off the hook and former President Trump is now facing these slew of criminal charges, which seem to most people very similar?
Great windup, John. I mean, really a good windup. I talked about this already. Page 1, willful retention. Page 2, 15. There is, in fact, a shortage of evidence on these points. The report itself goes through in great detail the facts and evidence that led to the obvious conclusion that there was no case here. The report itself answers the question you're asking about the distinction between 2 cases, as you guys have heard us from the White House say for a long time. We're very careful about commenting on certain cases like that. Just, I would encourage you, perhaps all of you, read the report.
I've read the report, and that's the reason why I asked that question. And the reason why so many people seem confused, because you hear willful retention of national defense information related to Trump, willful retention of classified material related to President Biden, and yet one individual is facing a criminal trial being brought by the Department of Justice in Fort Pierce, Florida, and the other one is not facing any charge.
Sure. And I think I've talked to many of you guys in the room over the last 24 hours about this. The allegation that there was willful retention of documents is refuted by the evidence in the report. And the conclusion was made directly that the evidence does not support that claim. He explored the theory. It's in there on page 2. Everybody focused on it. I'm exploring the theory of willful retention, but that the evidence as a whole was insufficient because that's not what the facts show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Karine. Really appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
There
Thanks,
was
Ian.
a previous special counsel probe that did not result in indictments, by the way. The Ham-Jordan case.
Okay, thank you. I would say refer to the White House special counsel, and now not special counsel, but legal counsel. They're here. They came. Okay, go ahead, Omer.
Excuse me. 2 questions just following up on comments that the president made last night. President Biden called the military operations in Gaza over the top. And this comes after the White House has pretty consistently defended Israel's conduct. What's changed, and what exactly did the president mean by over the top?
Yeah, so first of all, I would say nothing has changed. His position hasn't changed. I don't think his messaging has changed. We don't think his messaging has changed. He doesn't believe his messaging has changed. This isn't something the first time he's done so, what you heard from him yesterday. Look, the president made it very clear in his comment that he was obviously talking about Israel's conduct in Gaza. And he's been clear. He's been clear that the United States wants to see Hamas, a terrorist organization, defeated. He's been very clear on that. That is a shared goal that we have, obviously, with Israel. But at the same time, At the same time, while we have said that, we have been also very clear, the president has been very clear that they must do so by ensuring that their operations are targeted and conducted in a way that we are protecting innocent civilians. And that is something that we have been incredibly consistent about here in this administration. We want to make sure that we are also protecting innocent civilians. So that is what the president was speaking to yesterday. He was asked obviously a direct question, and he answered that.
Okay, and just, secondly, the president last night bristled against the fact that many Americans have concerns about his age. I think to a question of one of my colleagues, he said, that's your judgment, suggesting it's the media's judgment. There's no shortage of published polls that suggest Americans have concern about his age and stamina, and it's been put in all sorts of different ways. So is the president out of touch with what Americans feel about this issue?
So, look, obviously, when it comes to the report more broadly, you just heard from my colleague, Ian Sams, that part of the report we don't think lives in reality. And that's what he was speaking to, where comments were made in that report about that, obviously about his memory that we don't believe lives in reality. And no, I'm going to answer your question. Just give me a beat. I'm going to answer your question. When you have a president that has been one of the most productive, if not the most productive and effective presidents in modern time, that you would assume is a president that is indeed in touch with where the American people are, right? That would assume that the president understands what's going on around the kitchen table when Americans are sitting around the kitchen table trying to figure out how are they going to deal with the economy? How are they going to deal with healthcare? So in my opinion, he is very much in touch with what Americans are feeling out there as it relates to lowering costs, as it relates to making sure that we beat big pharma. This isn't the president who understands what the American people are feeling. Look, as it relates to his age, as it relates to what has been said by in this report, it is something that we don't believe lives in reality in the sense of this is a president. I've known this president since 2009. I've known this president. He has been not just my boss, but a mentor to me. And no one in this building would say that what we saw in this report about his memory. Everybody sees somebody who works very, very hard, has spent hours with him, understanding exactly where the American people are and what they're feeling, and also how to deliver on those critical, important issues to them.
Your argument on the report and the assertion that it's gratuitous is well taken, as well as what you believe is his performance. I get that. Yeah. But he seemed to be playing with a different set of facts. The facts are that this is an issue that Americans are concerned about. And he's saying that it's just the media's judgment.
Right, but he's also joked around with all of you and talked about and said some things about his age in a way that he understands where people are. He actually said that when in his answer. He has also mentioned his old pal Jimmy Madison. Right, he gets it. He gets how he's viewed. He gets what people see and what's written about him and what the American people also see. But there are other things to note, right? McCarthy, when he was speaker, said that he has found the president mentally sharp in meetings. There are stories like that from, as they're saying it quietly, privately, House Republicans and other Republicans in Congress. But there's reports from all of you who have said that they have interviewed some of these folks and have said the president is sharp. The president, when they have a conversation with the president, he understands the issue. I mean, we saw it at the last State of the Union. He was able to negotiate while giving a very important speech, about 90 minutes, to the world. Millions of Americans watch as he was able to negotiate with House Republicans in the room. So people see that also for themselves. They also see that for themselves as well.
So does the president feel that this is the result of Americans being concerned about his age is just based on a media narrative, and it's not based in reality?
What I'm saying is that he understands what people may think. He's actually joked about it. He actually has joked about it, saying Jimmy Madison and have said many other things. He says, I know people think I'm 40 years old. Like, he's made jokes about it. So he gets it. What I am saying in front of you today is that he has results. There are results. His record, the data shows that this is a president that gets where the American people are and has delivered in that way, whether it's the economy, whether it's healthcare, even on the global stage, what other leaders have said about him. right? What he has been able to bring leaders together, more than 50 countries, to deal with an issue, not an issue, a war, be very clear, in Ukraine, where the brave people of Ukraine are fighting against Mr. Putin's aggression. So world leaders see it. Leaders on the other side of Pennsylvania, whether it's a Republican or Democrat, see it. And so that matters as well. And that's what we're trying to say to you as well. It is that we have seen and we have heard from others that this is a president that has delivered, and this is a president that's going to continue to do so for the American people. Okay, so.
Thanks, Karine. You've downplayed concerns about the president's memories in situations where he's mixed up certain things. You've said it happens and it's common. But yesterday we saw the president again have a mix-up with the president of Egypt, with the president of Mexico. So how do you explain that? Is it not valid that voters would have these concerns?
Look, what I would say is this. That this is a president that has had relationship with world leaders for more than 40 years. He has. And at times, and I even said this yesterday, has he misspoken, as many of us do. I've laid out some examples of even Speaker Johnson just on TV on Meet the Press on Sunday, who said he supports Iran when he meant to say he supports Israel. It happens. It truly, truly happens. In that same answer that he gave, he actually gave an incredibly detailed answer on the overlapping dynamics in the Middle East as he was responding to the question that he received from one of your colleagues. And look, I want to quote one more person, as I've been quoting folks this today. Yara Rosenberg at the Atlantic said, Biden has gaff names his entire career. His entire career. It is not uncommon that he has done that, like many of us do. And he said he was clearly talking about Egypt and named Sisi and laid out his policy and the broader issues in detail. Twitter just isn't interested in that, right? And so look, this is a president who has the experience. You've heard me say this, he's been senator for 36 years. He's been obviously vice president for 8 and now president. He has these long relationships with leaders. I think what's important here is to remember is that when it comes to the essence of the issue at hand, he understands that and has dealt with that probably, better than any modern day president, because of the record that we have seen, because of what has presented in front of him as we look at what's going on in the world, what's going on in Ukraine, what's going on in the Middle East.
How did the president react when he first saw the report?
I'm not going to get into private discussions, private conversations with the president.
And just to follow up quickly, I think Justin had asked this before, but Ian Sams was making this argument that these are notes that he was reading from his own personal notes, from his own personal diary, but that can still be classified information, even if it was stuff he had written to himself. So is the White House disputing that there was classified information there?
So look, I'm not going to get into, Ian spent a good couple of minutes going back and forth and answering that question. I don't have anything else beyond what Ian, my colleague, shared here. I think the bigger picture here is that the case is closed. And I think that's what the American people also should know as well. And so I'm just not going to get into details from here. Okay.
Thanks, Karine. With concerns about the president's age, are there any plans within the White House to have him engage more with the press, engage more? He decided not to do the interview before the Super Bowl that many presidents have done. Has there been any considerations about revisiting that or other sorts of engagements to, as you said, many people in the White House do not see the image of him that the report depicts? Are there conversations about trying to change that perception among the American people?
I mean, look, you saw your colleagues were, I think, were you in the room, Tyler, yesterday? Your colleagues and yourself were able to see the president and ask questions yesterday. He did that, I believe, if not the day before yesterday, he did that a couple of times this week, I think about 3 times, engaging with the press. It's just something that he does pretty often. and we're going to try and obviously pick moments. He's going to, on his own, have moments where he's going to want to walk over and talk to all of you, as he's done many times before. And we're going to continue, obviously, to your question. Yes, we're going to find many different ways to engage with the press. That's something that we think it's very important. It's important to take your questions. It's important to hear from all of you and hear directly to what's on the mind of the American people, as well as what we believe is on the mind of the American people, and take questions. So that's not going to change. I don't have anything.
But I'm just wondering if there's been more conversation in the White House in the last 24 hours about a sense of urgency to try to get the president.
I hear the question, but he literally took questions from all of you 3 times this week. 3 times. Once when we were on the broad,
but just more broadly about getting the president out more to try to combat the idea that he has memory issues and is a.
No, but I hear your question, but we literally did. I was on the road with the president from Thursday last week until Monday evening. We went to Detroit or Michigan. We went to Michigan. We went to California. We went to we went to Vegas. The president has been out there, and that's something that we're going to continue to do. And so he wants to be out there to talk directly to the American people. You hear us say that all the time. And you've seen him do that throughout the month of January. And now, obviously, we're in February. We're going to continue doing that as we have been for the last 2 to 3 years. It's not going to stop.
Thanks, Karine. A question about Israel. Has he communicated to Prime Minister Netanyahu that he believes his response has been over the top? Is that language he has used in their discussion?
I mean, look, we have read out we've read out conversations that the president has had with the prime minister. The president has always been clear with the prime minister. I just don't have anything beyond that. What he said yesterday, what the president said yesterday, he's done before, in saying very clearly, obviously, we believe that Israel has a right to defend itself. Obviously, we believe we are in agreement that a terrorist organization, they have to make sure that they deal with this terrorist organization that on October 7th, terrorized and killed more than 1,200 people. That is a reality. But at the same time, the president has also been clear that their military operations need to be done in a precise way, in a more targeted way. We need to protect civilians' lives. And so, that has been the case. Now, in the broader scope, the president has been working with his team to make sure that we have another humanitarian pause. We understand how important that is to make sure we bring those hostages home to their friends, to their family, to their loved ones, and also get that really critical, important humanitarian aid that's needed in Gaza, get that in there. And so that's been the president's position. Nothing has changed there.
Can you clarify whether there's been any change in White House policy with regard to tying aid for Israel to its actions?
I don't have any change of policy to announce to all of you.
Since my colleague referenced a question that we asked last night, the question was about voters having concerns about the president's age, and his response was that was my judgment. It was obviously making a reference to public polls that are out there that indicate that voters do have this concern. So does the president not believe that many voters have this concern about his age?
I mean, the president's talked about it. He's joked about his age, right? He has joked about his age, understanding what voters might think. He has. He's done that pretty often. I think I think the other thing that we want to make sure that you all understand is that this is a president that also has delivered for the American people. That is a fact. That is something that we see in the data. That is something that we see in the policy, whether it's bipartisan legislation that we've been able to get through that people didn't think we would be able to get through, whether it's as it relates to like infrastructure or the Chips and Science Act, real things that American people feel. And for him, that's what he believes is important to focus on, is what the American people need in the sense of issues that matter to them. And that's what he wants his focus to be. That's what we want our focus to be as well. That's what we're always trying to communicate with all of you. But he jokes around about it all the time. He makes jokes about his age all the time.
I'm just asking for clarification on why the fact that we brought up that concern prompted him to say, this is your judgment. as though there isn't.
Because what I
that shows that voters do have that concern.
well, I just stated moments ago. It is your judgment, right? In the sense of like that is not what we see, right? When we see what
it wasn't my judgment.
but meaning more broadly. I'm not talking about you specifically.
Yes,
More broadly.
I'm just
Right.
asking, does the president believe and understand that that is a concern that voters
I already
have?
said he understands. That's why he makes jokes about it. He understands that. But what we are trying to say is our judgment from here, what we see from this president is a president that is zeroed in and focused on the American people. When we see him working, he is focused, and we don't see what, for example, all of this was brought up by the report. We do not believe that part of the report lives in reality. And that is what we're speaking to. That is what we're talking about.
Do you think there's any risk to the president sounding like he's dismissing that concern when he has that kind of reaction to a question like that?
Look, the president is going to obviously speak for himself and lay out what he thinks is important to talk about as it relates to the American people. When he wants to talk about the economy, he wants to talk about healthcare. We are talking this week about gun violence, right? How do we prevent gun violence, which is an issue that is incredibly important to communities across the country. When you think about gun violence being an epidemic in this country, those are the things that he wants to focus on. Those are the things that he wants to make sure that the American people understand what we're doing to deal with those critical issues. As it relates to his age, he makes jokes about it. He does. You hear him make jokes about it all the time. He gets it. He gets it. But he also wants to make sure that we are talking about the issues that, and I talked about this almost starting this, the briefing here, is what people really care about when they are sitting around their kitchen table. And that matters. We believe that matters as well. Okay, Francesca.
Thanks, Karine. Picking up on Tyler's line of questioning, why wasn't there a 2-2 today with the German chancellor?
Look, we always find different ways to engage with the press when we do these types of bilats. There are many things that come into consideration, and with this trip, there was no 2+2. You're going to see, obviously, there's going to be some of your colleagues going to be part of the pool spray in a couple of minutes, not too long from now, and so you'll have an opportunity to see the two of them. Look, every visit is different. And they're different for different reasons. It's not just us. We have conversations with other countries that the leader, obviously the leader of the team of the other country. This just happens to not have a 2+2, but that's not always the case.
And yesterday, when you made light of the president's verbal flubs, had you been briefed on the special counsel report or seen it at all?
Nope, not at all. And what do you mean when I made light of the president's verbal flubs?
Well, you made some jokes in response to questions about the president confusing world leaders with deceased world leaders. And
what I did was I tried to state very clearly that, and yes, I did it in a light way because it does happen to many people. And I actually talked about one of your colleagues that I do it to all the time. And so, look, I just want to be very clear. This is a president that is very much focused on the American people. He is very much focused on making sure what he was elected to do gets done. With the promises that he's made to communities across the country gets kept. So I just want to make sure that is made also very clear.
And finally, in response to the special counsel report, one of the president's Republican presidential rivals, Nikki Haley, has called for a mental competency test for the president. Is that something that the White House is actively considering as a way to try and put to rest some of these allegations about his memory lapses?
I mean, look, I'm not a medical doctor. So certainly I'm not going to stand here and make opine on tests or anything of that nature. What I can say is that, and I remember talking to the president's doctor last year when I was asked about a cognitive test when the president's physical came out, and he said to me, and I'm paraphrasing because this was over a year ago at this point, that because of the president's actions every day, what he deals with world leaders, the domestic issues that he has to deal with, he believes that shows, right? That shows that the president is very much active and understands what's going on, right? And didn't believe that a test like that was warranted because of just who he is as president of the United States and everything that he has to deal with. But again, I'm not a medical doctor. The president's going to continue to be obviously transparent when it comes to his physical. We were the last 2 years. We'll have one. He'll have one this year, and when the time permits, obviously, or when the time comes, we'll certainly share that.
Thank you, Karine. Last night, soon after the president's remarks about Israel, the administration announced a national security memo that calls for the State Department to obtain written assurances that countries that receive weapons from the U.S. will use those weapons in accordance with the law of war. Jake Sullivan, Kirby, others have previously said that the U.S. already requires those assurances. So why did the administration feel the need to formalize that and ask for it in writing now?
So look, so this memorandum that you're speaking of, it emerged in part with our discussions with members of Congress. So this obviously memo came out yesterday. And so it's called the National Security Memorandum. It outlines the standards that countries must adhere, as you just laid out. But I also want to be clear, there are no new standards in this memo. We are not imposing new standards for military aid. That's not what is in this memo. Instead, we are spelling out publicly the existing standards by the international law, including the law of armed conflict. So we are also, one thing that we are doing is creating a new annual report to Congress that members have requested. This is in request because of the interest of transparency. So this is in line with conversations that we have with the congressional members as we try to really, work together in a way that makes sense and moves the ball forward. But this is not new standards. This is something. These are things that already exist. To your point, that is now in writing. And then we did create a new annual report for more transparency.
If Israel doesn't sign off within the deadline of 45 days, because it is involved with active conflict, will the U.S. aid be cut off immediately?
So what I can tell you is that we did brief the Israelis on this. They reiterated their willingness to provide these types of assurances. So those conversations are happening, and they obviously they reiterated their willingness for these assurances. Okay. Great.
Thank you, Karine. If the special counsel says President Biden has got significant limitations on his memory, then who is helping him run the country?
The President of the United States runs the country. The Commander-in-Chief runs the country.
How can he be trusted with the nuclear codes if I get that you're saying that nobody in the building would say that he's got an issue with his memory, but just a little part of what we get to see, he's made mistake after mistake after mistake after mistake on camera this week.
So I'm going to be very clear here. The reality is that report, that part of the report, does not live in reality. It just doesn't.
So the special counsel is lying about the president's memory.
It was gratuitous. You heard from Ian Sams, my colleague. It is unacceptable, and it does not live in reality. That is just the facts. And look, it is a closed case. That is what the special counsel said. And what matters is that the president in the last 3 years has delivered on the economy, has delivered on healthcare, has turned this country around after the last president left us with an economy that was in a tailspin. That's what we were dealing with. If you think about the world leaders and issues that have been going on in this country for the past 2-3 years, not in this country, in the world, right? When you think about Ukraine, the president was able to bring together NATO allies. They've been the strongest than they've ever been, and make sure that we are providing what Ukraine, the brave people of Ukraine, need as they're fighting aggression, Putin's aggression. And that is what this president has been able to do. His experience as former senator, as former vice president, and now president, has gotten us to a place where we've been able to turn things around in a way that we meet the needs of the American people, whether it's domestic issues or national security issues. And that is what matters. That part of the report does not live in reality. Bye, everybody. Have a great weekend.
All right, my friends, that was directly from the White House. That was their live feed, if you will. So that was extremely interesting. I can honestly say I have not seen a press conference quite like that, at least not in some time. If you were not aware, yesterday there was a special counsel report that was put forward for the public to review. It was kind of their summary closing document. And this was a special counsel that is looking into President Joe Biden. This is not, as you would expect, on this particular special counsel against Donald Trump. This was the special counsel that was appointed by Attorney General Garland. So obviously, in the wake of this report, it has come out, and it is very damning, folks. There's no other way to say this. This report has all but said that our president, our commander in chief, if you will, is essentially not fit for office. The special counsel said he would not recommend or go forward with charges against the president because a jury would essentially not be able to find him guilty, not because of the evidence, but because President Biden would come across as a feeble, old man that has memory issues. According to the report, President Biden is not able to remember when he was vice president of the United States. According to the report, President Biden had a lot of things he could not remember, including when his son died, not even within so many years. I mean, I want to be clear, I'm not picking on the president. I pray for our president, and I hope you pray for our president, because the alternative is rather unthinkable. Can you imagine Kamala Harris being president of the United States? Personally, that truly does scare me. It really makes the hairs that are very few on my body stand up on the back of my neck. What a scary thought that we are so close to having a president that would have to be stepping down, or maybe the 25th Amendment would have to be triggered, in which the president would essentially be removed because of his inability to fulfill his oath to take care of the country and take care of his obligations as president of the United States. Very, very concerning. The paperwork also said that the president had willful retention of the documents that, were the initial problem for him. Isn't it interesting, though, how you have Hillary Clinton, the wife of former President Bill Clinton? She was caught, 35,000 emails on a server. She literally wiped the server. Remember her making a bunch of jokes about wiping it with a rag, and then turned this server that was not protected, it was not secure from hackers or from other countries trying to get a hold of whatever classified information was over it. If I did that, it at a minimum it would be obstruction of justice. But she mishandled classified documents. Nothing happened to her. President, George W. Bush had some records when they went back and started investigating. President Obama had records that were top secret records. Nothing happened to him. And now it's obvious that President Biden had a lot of documents that he knew about in his possession that he should not have had. But he's not being prosecuted because, in the words of the Attorney General special counsel that they appointed, that basically he's an old man and we're going to give him a pass. That's no excuse to give anybody a pass. And listen, this is difficult. I don't like this lawfare that we're living under. This is not right. This is not the way the country should be ran, where you have everybody trying to take out their opponent by throwing them in jail. I'm very uncomfortable about this whole situation. And the subject of records and top secret records is a whole other subject in itself, because a president has the unilateral ability to declassify whatever they choose to declassify just by saying it. Unlike President Trump, President Biden has been shown in the documents that not only did he disclose secrets, top secret information, but he gave this information to a ghostwriter who's writing a book for the president. And obviously he was doing it to try to increase the sales of the book to make it more interesting. So essentially, you have President Biden. He has top secret information. He is giving it to a ghostwriter so President Biden can make money. That is even worse. I mean, it doesn't really get any worse than that. A top secret situation, document information, and you are using it to profit, to put money in your pocket. That is isn't that treason? I mean, it really is a bad situation. It just looks bad, and it is bad for President Biden. And obviously, Donald Trump is facing, what is it now, 1,000+ years in prison, 91 felonious charges. It is just ridiculous, but it shows the two-tier justice system we have in this country. And unfortunately, these shots have been fired by President Biden and his administration. And if we can't find some way to clear this up, this is the way it's going to be from now on in American politics. The party in power is going to be doing anything and everything they can to take out the other party. It's okay that we disagree. It's okay that we don't like each other. It's okay that we're a divided nation. We've always been a divided nation. I had someone at church a few weeks ago say something to me. He said, hey, it's really sad how divided our nation is. And I've never seen it quite this bad. And I told this particular individual, I think, you think it's bad now. Imagine waking up in 1861, 1862. You'd really have a real bad day that day, a real bad week. Well, that's during and right before the American Civil War. So you think things are divided today, it could be much worse. I promise you that. It could definitely be much worse. But just imagine the disparity here, the two-tier justice system. It's real. It's proven. It's black and white in documentation. It is just not right, and it is really worrisome for our country. And I hope somehow, some way, they get this right and they go back and do the right thing. These charges against Donald Trump, at least as far as these so-called classified records, it's just absolutely ridiculous. The president himself can, just by saying this document is declassified, declassify the document. That's well within his right to do. So I don't want to get off on a tangent on it. I'm just telling you, this looks terrible that a guy like President Biden gets a pass and Donald Trump does not get a pass. All the former presidents and their wives got passes, but not our president. It sounds to me like they got a procedure they need to get straight as far as the records and the record handling is concerned. It's obviously there's some kind of fault there. And moving to yesterday, President Biden is obviously extremely upset, as I would imagine he would be upset. And he went on TV real upset and mad and tried to make the situation right. And of course, he only made things worse. And as a matter of fact, the speculation is he's thinking about firing A.G. Garland because he hired this special prosecutor that has made Biden look like a complete and utter idiot. He made him look, and it says that this is a man that is basically not in control of his mental faculties. Can you imagine that? The president of the United States not able to remember basic things. And listen, before you start with me on, will Donald Trump confuse Nikki Haley with something today? Listen, I get it. We all make mistakes. I do it all the time myself, but I'm not president of the United States. What I will say is it's not about age, folks. It's about mental capacity. And I don't think there's anybody that is being intellectually honest can look straight and say without smirking and smiling about it that, hey, there is a definite difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Yeah, I mean, to say otherwise, you would just not be genuine with everybody. You know better, and I know better. Let's just call it what it is. Again, it's not age, it's just mental decline. I wouldn't care what his age is. When you're mentally impaired, when you're mentally declining, as we all get older, you know that the rate of decline gets faster and faster. It's not something that just boom, it starts and then, it may last 5-10 years before it gets any worse. That's not the way that this type of situation works with older people. When they start declining, generally, as the years go by, it's kind of like falling off a cliff, going straight over. So it's really a problem. I hope that there is a solution to it that works out for everybody. I really don't see how Joe Biden's going to be able to go forward and actually run a campaign. It's as simple as this. If Joe Biden is elected president again, I guarantee you, so mark it here, remember this video, there will be a president, Kamala Harris. No doubt in my mind. You know it, and I know it. So let's just see what happens and let's be prayerful about it. So I always appreciate you joining me. Make sure you subscribe if you like these type videos. I like to cover live events, especially when there's something major going on in the world like this special counsel report. Stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe so you know when my new videos coming out. I always say, keep that mind free. Never give up, my friends. And until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.